This story is very much true, and is a first-hand account of one of the creepiest events in my life. I will not be getting into pinpoint details, as I wish no harm to come to me, or where I worked at the time. I just need to let the world know my story. My side, that is. A little about me that you should know before I start. I have always been an avid creepy story reader. It started when I was about 14 years old, now 27, with Snopes.com, a popular urban story website. I have books upon books of urban legends, ghost stories and campfire stories weighing my bookshelf down. To say that I am a collector of morbid curiosities is a bit of an understatement. I have shelves lined with tokens of the strange. I grew up in a relatively small town in the south where the crime rates were decently low. About an hour and a half away, there was a large city that had one of the worst crime rates in the south. Over time, the trash from the big city started filtering into our little town. As a result, the once great town that I lived in got more and more crime-ridden. This particular incident happened about 3 years ago, and I don't talk about it with very many. At the time, I worked at a semi-decent hotel that was bought out by some foreign owners. I will not get into the race or culture of the foreigners, as I do not wish to spark a debate over them. Needless to say, they were the type that would just run it into the ground and get every penny they could out of it. They changed the name of the hotel to one with lesser fees, still a franchise, but a much lesser known one. We went from hotel to motel over a month period. As a result, we started getting less than desirable guests at the once decent hotel. Drug addicts, prostitutes, pimps, people just out of jail, pedophiles, those running from the law. I could go on and on. I had my life threatened probably at least once per week, mostly from guests who my then foreign boss thought should be kicked out without a refund. It was here that the scariest and most traumatic event, thus far, of my life was to occur. I will start at the beginning. I went in for my usual shift, 3 p.m. through 11 p.m. on a Monday afternoon. Nothing was out of the ordinary. In fact, we were relatively slow, so I was able to read almost the entire night. For those of you in the hotel industry, you know how much we treasure those slow nights. I didn't have any creepy encounters this particular night. No weirdos, no weird sounds, etc. All was absolute quiet, it seemed. The next 2 days I had off, so I enjoyed my day like usual. Any day away from that place was like a day in heaven. The next day I had to go to work was a Thursday. I do my usual routine of going and getting snacks and drinks before I go into work. Since I work an 8-hour shift with literally no breaks, it's important to have a small amount of food to shove in my mouth in the breaks of people coming in. The moment I went into the hotel, I smelled something absolutely horrible. It smelled almost like a mixture between wet carpet and poop. I can't really describe it in any other way than that, because I had never smelled this particular scent before. I found the manager in the laundry room immediately, helping his wife with the dirty laundry of the day, and reported the smell to him. I told him that the hallway smells like shit. Those were my exact words. He looks at me funny, says he doesn't smell anything weird, and proceeds to walk down the hallway spraying Febreze on every inch of the carpet he can find. I still remember him to this day, flapping his arms to spread the smell of the Febreze and saying, "Smell fresh? Smell fresh?" I had to admit that the odor was somewhat masked, and I went back to my usual shift. That night, I got a call from a room on the first floor with a complaint that the carpet was soaking wet, possibly a busted pipe. This made sense to me, as the pungent odor I had smelled earlier was reminiscent of an old wet and mildewy carpet. I knocked on the door and was led into the room by a woman who I would say would be in her late 40s. I noticed a guy in the room as well. Tall, muscular, and nasty looking, with bushy black hair pulled into a ponytail and a scruffy beard. He looked to be on drugs and was pacing in front of the window, avidly looking into the parking lot. I ignored him as best as I could, seeing as how I dealt with drugged out freaks like this all the time. I went towards the bathroom, and sure enough, the carpet right in front of the bathroom was damp. I also smelled that odor again, more pungent than ever. I offered to move the odd couple, saying that maintenance wasn't here and I couldn't find a way to fix it myself. Only being the front desk clerk, I didn't have the skills. They adamantly refused to leave the room, so I just brought some extra towels to put down on the floor to soak up the water. They seemed content with this idea, and I pushed the incident out of my mind. I left at 11 p.m. at night, as usual. The next day, I had decided that I wanted something good to eat before going into work. I passed by the motel on my way to the restaurant, and I noticed that police cars were outside of it. Typical Friday night, I thought to myself, and laughed it off. I texted my partner and let him know that I had seen the police cars outside of the building as I passed by to the restaurant. I was waiting in line to get my food when I received a text message back saying that I should read an article that had been posted that day, and not to freak out too bad. I rolled my eyes, as I knew that if it was in the news, then I would have people asking me about whatever it was all day long. Glancing at the article, it was titled, "Body Found Under Bed at Local Hotel." I freaked out. Suddenly, the smell from yesterday made a lot of sense. The thought of me having smelled and breathed in decaying corpse the night before was almost too much to handle. Out of pure curiosity, and against my better judgment, I did go into work that night. As soon as I stepped out of my car, I had a few people approach me and ask me if I had heard what had happened. I merely shook my head and headed towards the building. The manager met me in the entrance to the lobby and ushered me in through the door. I could smell the now identified scent tenfold, and all I could manage to ask was, "Is it true?" "Is what true?" he asked. "Did they find a body under one of the beds?" I replied, shocked that he didn't automatically know what I was talking about. "Oh, that. Yes, that is true." What the fuck? Seriously? That is the best thing you could come up with as a reply? I thought to myself. That whole day, the scent was overpowering, to the extent I had to walk around with a bottle of air freshener held under my nose. The police department was with us for 2 days after that reviewing the tapes, so I felt extremely safe knowing that I was protected. I later found out the rest through the media and by talking to the officers. It turned out that they had almost immediately identified the corpse under the bed as a lady who was bad into meth. Her abusive boyfriend had been staying with her the night she died and was also doing meth. They caught the guy 2 days later, wielding a knife and running through the neighborhood. He was apparently homeless, and he had all kinds of drug paraphernalia and meth on his person at the time of his arrest. Curiosity took over. I searched for him on our prison website and found him. I let out a faint screech as I realized that the man in the picture, the man that they had caught, was the same man pacing back and forth in the room that had complained of the wet carpet the night before. The room that the lady and the man had together was the room right next to the one where the body was found. To know that I had been in such close proximity to an urban legend-style murderer really intrigued and freaked me out. Through social media, I found the victim and read accounts of her character, and my heart went out to the family. Even though she was a druggie, no one deserves to die and be disposed of like this. It turns out that while high on meth, the guy would choke his now victim until she would black out. He would then tase her with a little handheld taser until she came around. Only this time, she didn't come back around. Scared, he put her body in the wooden encasement under the bed and fled. The next day, he returned with another lady to stay in the room right next door. Whether or not the lady knew about what he had done is still a mystery. An elderly couple checked into the room, with the body under the bed, the next day and stayed for a few days, not realizing the smell. At first, the police went after them. I mean, how can you stay in a room that long and not notice that smell? I bet they were really shocked to find out that they slept on top of a corpse for the past few nights. It turned out that the couple was innocent, of course, and they were able to go back and realize that it had been the previous guest before them. Can you imagine the police pulling you over and asking you these questions? I believe I would be violently sick. I won't go into the gory details of them finding her under the bed, or how they removed her, as I am not sure that I legally have the right to discuss such issues. I will say, however, that they stripped the room bare, and the hallways continued to stink for months. I continued to work there for a little over a year. I was planning my escape from the place, but needed to save up enough money to get the hell out of town. One more thing that I will mention is that one night, when it was dark and there was no more guests coming in, my curiosity got the better of me. I crept to the now concrete block of a room and let myself in. I called out what I came to know was the woman's name who had been unceremoniously shoved under the bed. I said, "Are you here?" All of a sudden, I heard a loud barking noise coming from the room next to me, and I about messed myself and I hurried up out of the room. I hadn't realized that the people staying next to that room had a dog, and it had heard me talking. I went back only once after that. I opened the door to the room, peered inside, and said quickly, "They caught the man. If you're in here, you can rest in peace. He's in jail," before slamming the door shut and never going back in there. While some of the stuff in my creepy encounter was omitted, I testify that the rest of it is true and backed with numerous articles on said event. As I said before, I will not disclose my name or the name of the motel in question. I don't want to harm their reputation any more than it already has been. I will never forget that man's face or the scent of decay. Both are burned into my mind to this day. Just remember to always pay attention to your surroundings, and when checking into a hotel, check those beds. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you leave a like, subscribe, and share it with your friends. If you would like a chance to have your story featured in an upcoming video, make sure you check the description for information on how to submit your stories. I hope you will have a great weekend, and I'll catch you in the next video. And just remember, it's always scarier if it's true. I crept to the now concrete broom was reminiscent of an old wet and mildew carpet. Was reminiscent of an old and mildewy carpet. Was reminiscent of an old wet mildewy carpet. Why do I keep saying fucking carpet? What the fuck? What the fuck is carpet? Was reminiscent of an old wet and mildewy carpet. Seriously? What the fuck is going on? Oh, I can't get this fucking part done. I can't say fucking carpet. What the fuck is going on? Mildewy carpet. Alright, I'm gonna try this again. Try to be quiet for a second, please.